I'm going to show you can create pixel art textures seamlessly with real images such as this rusty metal that we have here that I can easily convert it to, boom, this. Doesn't matter what platform you're on, if you're Windows, Macs and Linux, it should all work. And in this case I'll be on Linux, but it should also work fine. To break this process down, we have our original image, then we have a cropped version that is seamless, so when we click on it and I press and control it together, they all connect evenly without any issue, and then we convert that seamless cropped image into our pixel art on whatever resolution we want. Before we really get started, you'll need 3 pieces of software mainly. We'll need imagemagick, which is what we will use to create the Pixelize photo. Some sort of photo editor. You could actually use imagemagick, but we want a GUI, one with a visual indicator, so we can select a section of the image we want to crop, and I think that'll be a bit easier with something like GIMP. And then we need a software from GitHub, which is image to texture. You may need Python installed if you want to use the API version, which we'll get to later, but all these pieces of software will all work on your operating system, Mac, Linux or Windows, as I said before, and these are all free as well. So imagemagick is a nice little tool. It is a command line based image editor, and it's just really good for converting images into different file types or creating GIFs with them without having to use a GUI. You just type in the commands and it does it really fast and quickly, and it's very lightweight. And as you can see, you can just download it on whatever operating system you have. So Mac OS, so I'm on Linux, so I have the Linux system installed, but you also have the Mac OS binary, even have iOS, and you have the Windows binary release. As you can see, Windows is just an exe, so really simple. And so once you have imagemagick and give it a few goes to see if it's installed, you would want to go to Fred's imagemagick scripts, and this is a collection of imagemagick scripts, as it says in the name, that do a lot of interesting things, and one of them is a pixelizer that we can see here. Important notice is the licensings that we can see here is that it is free to use, but if you were to incorporate his script in your code, so the actual script in your like a software you might have built, you will have to contact him, but the resulting images are completely fine to use. That's just something, disclaimer, do read the licenses when you are downloading stuff like this. Next is an image editor. I'm going to show you GIMP because that is again free and cross-platform. This one's really another simple one. Just download GIMP on whatever platform you're on. So in this case, I am Linux, but you also have Mac OS, Windows, and you even have an all for all now, a new wide range one, which is very cool. So use that or use Photoshop or Affinity, whatever you prefer. It doesn't really matter. Now, lastly, we have image to texture, which is on GitHub. All these links for this software will be down in the description, so you don't have to go find them. And this is a Python application that, as you can see, creates images into seamless textures, as shown below. Here's an example. And you can just do a pip install, which is if you have Python installed. If you don't have Python installed, no worries, because there are the downloadable binary executables, sorry. I'm not sure if you still need Python installed, but you can just simply download them and it will give you like the exe or the application, so you can just run it straight there and then. You don't need to do any reinstalling of stuff. Once we have all the tools, let's actually go into converting real images to textures. Well, we need a place to get our textures, and in this example, you could use your own images, but I want to use PBR textures from Polyhaven, as these are CC0 licenses, which are essentially public domain, meaning that you are free to use them however you like, which is fantastic. They offer HDRIs, textures and models, and so we'll just browse the textures and see what there is, and boom, there are a wide range of textures. In fact, there's 491 to choose from, ranging from rocks, wood, brass kind of things. Some textures will be better than others, so for example, a plastered wall, it ain't going to be too well at downscaling, it's just going to look like a bunch of whites and greys. One that won't look too well as a pixel art, one you're better off just manually drawing. But a better one would be something like this brick wall here, and if we look at the diffuse, we can see it already has a nice pattern and it has clear colours that are different. So I have decided on this texture, which is the coral stone wall, and what we want to download is diffuse. The diffuse is this one. This is like the colour, and it's a full bright image essentially, or one without any shadows, and that can become an issue in some cases, and I'll show you how we can fix that by adding shadows. But you'll need another software, which is Blender, what you can do is just download the diffuse image, and in this case, I think this was the 4K one. Yes, we want the 1K one actually. To download the 1K image, we don't really need a super big resolution because we're just going down from 1K to like 32 by 32 tiny. It might be hard to see, but I have my two images. I don't think I can zoom anymore. No, I can't. But I have my two files. I have the image and I have that Pixelize script I said from Fred's Pixelator. So if we go back, that is this guy. You just click download script here and save it into a directory folder you want to use it in. I just want to show you an important thing to note. When you do download it, it's important that you go to the properties and you click on the permissions. You make sure that not the permissions that you see here where it says execute as a program is enabled, otherwise it won't run on your system. So I hope you are familiar with a bit of command line stuff. It won't be too complicated. You'll need to use the terminal to run this bash script because this is how they are built for, but let's go. So I'll show you that I'm in my folder. So here we have the coral stone wall difference and the Pixelize script. And to run the Pixelize script, this is on Linux, but it should be pretty similar on Windows, is /Pixelize. How big we want to pick the pixels to be. We'll just run it, for example, a new pixel to be worth 8 pixels in this case. And we can set the type. I'll do 1 for now to show you what that looks like. And then we'll do the coral stone wall, that. And you just set the output to whatever you want it to be, so I can have it shortened, and the type so I can convert it to a PNG if I want. So I run that, it's done. And if I go to my folder now, there it is. So when I open this and show you, there you go. See, we have a kind of pixelated version. We can try it with 2, and I'll show you what that looks like. 2 is like less interpolation, so the current one kind of looks like a blurry image, but we refresh now, it looks like more sharper, you could say. So kind of cool. So to create like, let's say a 32 by 32 image, like a kind of like a Minecraft texture in this case, we want to get the resolution of our current image, and it needs to be a square, otherwise we'll be losing information. And so the image I just downloaded is 1024, and so we want to divide that to the amount that it will be 32. So if we do vision, I'm quite certain it is actually in fact 32 will create 32. And why is that important is that when we run this, we want a pixel size to be divisible so it becomes the 32 by 32. So a single pixel will be worth equivalent to 32 pixels, which will then convert our image to a 32 by 32. And so if I run this, and now if we look back at our image, there's our 32 by 32 image, and you might be like, oh my god, it looks horrible. And that's because our images was not necessarily too large, it was too detailed. There was too much information for it to really create into anything useless, so it's just a bunch of noise, bunch of random colors. If we convert this to a 1, so more interpolation, the results may be better, but it'll still be a jumbled mess. It kind of just looks like less noisy image into a more blurred image. This still looks okay, you could still use it as a texture, but if we go to, let's say we do 16, which would be a 64 by 64, we would actually get better results. As you can see, refresh this, that actually looks kind of decent. That would actually be okay for a 64 by 64 texture, I would say that's pretty good. And obviously we saw the 128 by 128, which was also good. So that was the -S8 version. And I'd say this is actually a pretty decent result for that. So our next step is to crop the image down so we can get less information, let's say, which will be easy to convert into a 32 by 32 pixel image. So open up your good old image editor. Here I have the coral stone that we had, the original, and really we just want to crop it. And you can choose really as much as you like, but make sure that it's obviously a square and that it can be divided down to a 32 by 32. But with the image to texture that we'll be using, that does actually sort of crop down the image to create the seamlessness. It doesn't necessarily have to be super accurate, but I'm going to choose a 256 by 256. And so really I want to choose a section that I quite like, that has some nice cracks into it and areas. So I think I'm going to go with maybe I quite like this section here, the stone. Yeah, I can just press enter on my GIMP image, and there we go. So now I can just export as a PNG image. So you've seen here, I have now cropped it. I've done my little crop and I exported it, and I can now run my later, and it's going to be 8 because that would be 32 by 32, and I can choose it by 2. Do cobblestone crop, which I've named it, and then we'll just again overwrite our previous one as stone.png. And so now when we look at our image, refresh it, there we go, which is nice, but it's not seamless. So you can see here that our pixelated version is in really no way seamless. You can see that it just kind of cuts off top here. At the bottom one here actually does do a decent job at almost being seamless, but we need to use our image to texture to then make it into a seamless texture. So let's do that. So I have image to texture installed as a Python package, but if you were, you can just run the executable like we did before, the // or however it was done on your system. But because I have it as a Python package, that I can just do this, and I press 8, it'll show me it. There you go. So we have what the arguments we have is the source, the target. So the source is the input image we want to create it seamless. The output, the target will be what is the output seamless image will be, and we want to choose how much of the overlap we will use, so how much of the image, the top and bottom, we can use. There's also a tile, which is it will create you an output tiled image that you can view, but we won't need that. So we just need to do the image to texture, and then have our rule, so the crop version that we used, and then the output, which will be, by mistake, I'm going to call it seamless, and I'm going to set it as a PNG again. And then for the overlap, we'll just do 0.10, which is 10%. If I run that, oh, I did a 0 here, it's meant to be a 9. There we go. And if I go to my files now, as seen here, we now have our seamless image. And if we open up our Inkscape now as well, better, but I'd say this issue here of like this little grey bit that just kind of cuts off is not great. So this section is a bit, I think this will do for now, and especially because this detail will sort of be to an extent lost as we crop it down. So now we can just run our Pixelizer for this time. We will do seamless one now, and then we can just overwrite the last one we had like that. And when we go and view it now, here, there we go, looks pretty good. Again, we can go into Inkscape. There you go. See, look, that looks pretty good, doesn't it? But we're not done yet. While our image is a pixel thing, if we look at it, we go to properties here. You might struggle to read this, but if I click image properties, the image resolution is 231 by 231, which I said before we would lose some of that aspect ratio from when we cropped it from our seamless one, unfortunately. But it's not a 32 by 32. This is not necessarily a bad thing. It still works. It's just that it's going to use up more memory than it really needs to. This is actually a 9.2 kilobyte, which is still tiny, but I feel like if we can copy it down to, if it's a 32 by 32, we may as well just crop it down to a 32 by 32. And because we have imagemagick installed, we can use that to scale our image back down. So in this case, there's a convert function, which is, in this case, I have the original input file we had, which was Coral Stone, and I interpolate it, and I want to use the nearest neighbor because I don't want to blur it down when it happens. And then I set the scale to what I want, which is going to be 32 by 32, and then what the output file will be. So if I run this, now we have a 32. Now it's going to look blurry in the file view just because it's trying to sort of estimate it, but if we open up it and we zoom in, there you go. There's our pixelated version of the image, which is nice. So when we put it in a video game, it should scale really quite nicely. And I've done a few of them. So here's another example of the coral texture. Here's one of wood that kind of looks pretty cool. One of a mossy kind of wood, bit of mossy dirt. This tiled one, was already a seamless texture. So I actually didn't need to do this, run it through the seamless image to texture software. So it came out, I could just edit as it was. This great one's really cool. The rusty metal is actually quite nice. This fabric one also came out quite nice as well. Some of these images, however, the colors blend too close together and you can't really see any of the grooves. So in this brick texture, for example, the colors with the actual like cobblestone itself will merge too much. Like it won't convert well to a pixel texture. But in the nice lighting one, we can see that it defines it much easier. As a further step, if you want to use these, we'll need something like Blender installed to actually recreate shadows for our pixel art image. So this time you want to download the Blender file here, or you can download the GLTF. The GLTF just has the textures that you can just instantly apply to whatever you want, and the blend file will be this essentially sphere that you can see here. That's what it will give you, and so the scene will already be made up. And What else I also recommend you do is you go and download a HDR, and we can use that as an image reference. And we want one with quite a sharp lighting. So this one, you can see based on the shadow, sort of like the angle where the light will be hitting. This one is the light is much lower down, so the angles are going to be much sharper, as opposed to this one where the light is above it, so there's less of an angle in the shadow, as you see here. So I'm going to download this rock wall because it has some details, but I want to, because they're quite exposed. I think it might be interesting to try it in a 3D render to get the nice shadows in, because it might actually give us a better result. So I'm just going to download the 1K Blender file. We don't need the high resolution ones in this case, and just save that wherever. And what you want to do is you want to open this in your Blender application. So once you have your Blender application open, you want to open that blend file that you have, and you'll open a scene like this. And just make sure that you have cycles enabled, your feature set to be experimental, but I would just recommend it to be supported just for now in that tab. It might be hard for you to see, but I'll try and explain it verbally as well as I can. So if we go to the top right and you click the far right little icon, which is the viewport shading, that'll give us the ray tracing shadings, and this is the scene that we have. As you can see, they already have a preset, which you press 0 on your numpad, it'll take you to the camera view, and as you can see, this is the camera view we saw on the website of the sphere. On the left window, it just shows you the textures, but what we want to do is we actually want to remove all these lightings that they have here, and you can go back to the non-shading one and just delete them. You can also go through and just hide them from the scene. So you click on this sphere, we can see it's highlighted in the top right. We hide it from, we click the eye, it will hide it, and if we click the camera, it will hide it from the render as well. We don't need that, but we do want to keep the plane on, because obviously going to use that as our texture image. The next we want to add our HDRI image, so it makes it look like a nice sunny day. And what you want to do is you want to go on your the left window here, and up top left where it says object, click the drop down and click on the world. Then you want to do Shift A and search environment texture, and then just open the file where you have saved your HDRI image. Once you have your HDRI in, just drag it and drop and put it in the surface where it says world output, and we can just ignore the rest for now. We're not too bothered by it. Now when I go back into my shaving, we see it's a nice sunny day, and so now what we want to do is reorientate our camera so it looks above on this texture. To do that, it's quite simple. We can once again use the numpads. If you press 7, it'll make the camera appear on top, and 9 will make it appear below. So we want to center our image. If you haven't got a camera already, you want to add one, and you can do this really easily. Just do Shift A on the right window and type camera, and there you go. I'll add a camera to our scene. If we press 7 on our number to get the top view, we can then do Control-Alt-0, and this will create a camera from where we're looking. And we just sort of want to zoom in until we can get it as close as we can to the image, a bit more. There you go. I'd say this is relatively good enough for our liking. And then at this point, all we need to do is make sure our rendering is on GPU, if not, or CPU, and on cycles, and that we make sure the output, which is just below, as the resolution is 1024 or whatever square resolution. And so when we run this now, we can just render this with F12. It shouldn't take too long, and there you go, there's our image. And what you can now do is just do image and then save as wherever, and just using the same method as in cropping the image and then converting it to a seamless texture, we have the output just like this. And that was based on that render one, so you can see we get a bit more detail from it with the shadows, and you see the shadows are far more clear, which actually adds a nice little touch to our image. And because these are scripts and image to texture is a Python package, we can make a nice short autonomous script that we can run like here. So for this one, I can open up the terminal and do Python main.py. It will run the application, and if we go in our pixel output, here's all our images that it just generated, and it was based on a ton of our inputs as we put here. So here, for example, bark willow, and it automatically made our bark willow here into a pixel one, and also created our seamless one. This is a little script I made. There's a lot of cool things you can do with these. Do just automate the process a bit more. And just to give you a video game example, here we have Minetest. It's just an open source version of Minecraft, just to show you an example. And I've swapped out some of the textures, so the plank are now looking like this. That's all there is to it. Very simple, very easy to use, and of course cross-platform, while also being free. If you like this video, then do please smash that like button, but also comment down below on your interest on this. This is not exclusive to just textures, and you can use the Pixelize to convert drawings and such to pixel art, which I have in another video. Anyway, I'll see you and get to creating pixel art.